some of the key trends that are worth noting when we think about the use of these different types of technologies. One is, I would say, the relevance of foreign actors. Both countries relied on foreign defense partnerships to build these capabilities. So India used systems from Israel, France, Russia, while Pakistan integrated platforms from China and Turkey. And these systems featured interoperability and real-time data link capabilities, which was a game changer from the Pakistani side, which allowed for faster coordination, targeting, and overall platform integration. The second key aspect that stands out when we think about the use of these new technologies and how are they mattering in this context is is the nature of the engagement itself. So instead of direct clashes this time, these technologies, they enabled beyond visual range BVR, no contact standoff operations, which basically means that strikes could be launched from a distance with minimal exposure, and the tempo of exchanges was faster than in the past crisis. So this aspect, now paired with this emergence of electronic warfare, which is also enabled by these new technologies, these electronic capabilities were very crucial, especially from the Pakistani side, to disrupt Indian radar and communications and reduce the response time, which degrades the overall situational awareness. There are signs that there were AI enhanced jamming enabled, and this resulted in a lot of, again, contributed to the fog of war. Alongside with real-time ISR and targeting data, it created a major asymmetry in the information flow on both sides. So the other key aspect that I want to mention, apart from the electronic warfare, the standoff capabilities, and the relevance of foreign actors, is that we are seeing there's an emergence of systems that are introducing a low-cost, high-impact layer of retaliation. This unmanned and standoff platforms have given both sides the tools to signal resolve without crossing thresholds tied to manned incursions or ground operations. So what does this mean for deterrence dynamics? On the one hand, like when we talk about a lot of these debates about emerging technologies and new technologies and how do they impact strategic stability and deterrence, on the one hand, standoff capabilities lower the political cost of retaliation. So they offer precise, limited options that demonstrate resolve while avoiding a full-scale war. So this is relatively stabilizing. But on the other hand, these tools compress decision-making timelines, especially AI-assisted targeting, autonomy, and the data linked enabled sensors. They shorten the time between detection and action. And this can increase the risk for miscalculation or even a technical error. So what I'm ultimately trying to say is that on one hand, these technologies are adding some sort of restraint or adding some sort of additional capabilities that allow states to make better decisions. On the other hand, they're also compressing the timelines, and they're also creating risks for escalation that we have not seen before. And the last piece that really adds to this is the cyber operations, which were a big part we saw during this crisis. They add to the uncertainty, the spreading of disinformation, which we saw was a big aspect of this crisis and how it unfolded. And this can also have the potential to interfere with command and control and make it harder to read the other side's intent, which are key components when we're trying to think about maintaining deterrence in the region. So they can, deepen the fog of war in the region. And the last aspect I would like to mention with regard to an element that came out of the incorporation of all these different technologies during this crisis was it's no longer sufficient to have just the advanced systems. The core issue is how these technologies are integrated and embedded and how they work together in a multi-domain warfare with air, cyber, space, and electronic systems working in tandem. So tactical wins are less important than strategic integration and some sort of like an operational interoperability that exists between these different systems. So key takeaway here is that deterrent stability in South Asia no longer depends on only who has the most advanced weapons. It also depends on how these systems are used, how they're operationalized, how they're integrated into the doctrines. And in a region which is shaped by drones and AI and hypersonics, the question is no longer just about what the state possesses. It's about how do they responsibly use these systems in a way that achieves their deterrence objectives without creating risks which can escalate the crisis further.